You realize Lane Johnson hasn't given up a sack since 2020? Before I get into the stats, let me throw this one at you, because he has been a friend of the show in the past. You realize Lane Johnson hasn't given up a sack since 2020? You're muted.
Twice on one show. Dang it. I thought I had it down to a sign.
We need like a fine jar. You drop $1 in every time.
If that's the case, you'll take my allowance money for the month.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
You can't even go out of the house.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I've talked to Lane about that on a number of occasions, and he takes a lot of pride in that fact. You know, you always hear players talk about, I don't look at individual stats as long as I'm doing my job and the team is successful. That's a stat to be extremely proud of. I mean, how many offensive linemen can say that since 2020? They haven't given up one, especially with the collection of edge rushers and the versatility of edge rushers that you see in the game today, and the different array of edge rushers. I mean, you got more linebackers attacking from the outside than ever before now. You got the hybrids like Hassan Reddick, whose claim to fame is piling up sacks. And for this man week in and week out to hold his own against the best of the best tells you that his work ethic is second to none. He puts in a lot of work. I mean, when you think about how accomplished he is at this stage of his career, he still puts in a lot of work working on something we call technique, trying to improve his technique week in and week out. He doesn't rest on past laurels. And that's why he is as good as he is, because everything, every little detail is that important to him. And he should teach a clinic, not just to offensive linemen, but to professional athletes in general, about, I don't care how deep you go into a career, especially in a profession where your average lifespan is less than 4 years. But for as long as you play this game, don't ever stop working to get better. Even when you reach the pinnacle of your profession, doesn't care if you're a 10-year consecutive Pro Bowler, doesn't care if you've won 3 or 4 Super Bowls, there's always a little something to work on, because the guys playing across from you are always working on a different move, a different technique to get the best of you. So you can never rest on your past laurels. That is why Lane Johnson, that stat you just mentioned, that is why Lane Johnson has that stat around his neck as a medallion, because he refuses to not get better.
Well said, man. And the other thing that stands out to me about that, Derek, is like he doesn't take a play off. Think about it. I mean, if there's not one time where you let your guard down a little bit and you just said, you know what, it happens. You know, what are you going to do? No, I mean, that's every play you're dialed in and you're giving max effort, because if you don't in that league, you will get beat, as you said, with some of these guys. I mean, you look at that Dallas, how ferocious Dallas was last night, how ferocious the Eagles were Sunday against Washington.
Yeah.
And he's gone, you know, now into his second year of not giving one up. It's unbelievable.
Think about not just competing every week, Rob. He's battling the internal issues of dealing with depression and anxiety as well. That right there can mentally take an edge off your game. When you're combating that, he had to step away from the game for a while finally. And, you know, it wasn't the first time he had to step away from the game a little bit to get himself together, to get the necessary help to overcome this and to put it in its proper perspective. But, you know, I love talking to Brian Dawkins about it, because Brian Dawkins is a Hall of Famer. Brian Dawkins was one of the best to ever play his position. Brian Dawkins, to this day in his retirement, still battles depression, but he's found a way to overcome that. Lane Johnson has found a way to overcome that, to defeat that demon, so it doesn't affect not just his personal life, but his game on the field. And I've never gone through it. I know people who have gone through depression and who deal with depression, but it is not something you get rid of like a common cold or the flu. It's something that haunts you at any given moment. It can hit you. When you're at your highest high, all of a sudden the next day you can be at your lowest low. It's a proverbial roller coaster that you deal with for much of your life. Unfortunately, some people, you know, they end their lives because they can't deal with it anymore. But for Lane Johnson, he has found a way to put that demon in his place, to keep his foot on it, and to keep moving forward, to be the best that he can be at his profession.
Yeah, it's impressive. No doubt about it. All right. So a couple things that stood out to me. So let me give you some rankings here where the Eagles fall on both offensively and defensively. So points per game, Derek, they're at 28.7, which is fifth in the NFL. Passing yards per game, 296.7, third in the league. Rushing game, 150.3, that's seventh. So they're no lower than seventh in the biggest, three categories right there. Defensively, giving up 16.7 points per game, seventh in the NFL. 186.7 passing, seventh in the NFL. 110 on the ground, 17th. That's a little, high because of the Detroit game,
the first
mostly.
Game. Yep.
Which hurt them big time. But still, I mean, all in all, you're fifth in scoring and you're seventh in points allowed, and your differential there is basically 12 points, 28.7 to 16.7. Pretty good.
This was a team where the defense had to catch up to the offense. The offense came out hitting on all cylinders, right from the start of the season. The defense had to find its identity, and thank goodness it only took one game for them to find that identity. Now it's on even keel. They complement each other very well. The defense is going to get off the field and get the offense the ball. The offense is going to take care of business, put points on the board to take pressure off the defense so the defense can play a lot looser, a lot more aggressive, a lot more energetic. Instead of playing defensive football, they can play attacking football more so. And then when you look at the collection of personnel on both sides of the ball, Mike Quick just talked about it. We've talked about it time and time again. The depth. There are guys sitting on a bench for this team that could be starting somewhere else in the National Football League. It's not often you have a complement of players like that. You look at some of the better teams that have had major success. New England was great at that for years. It started with a quarterback, and a quarterback should get a lot of the credit, but look at the talent that New England assembled on both sides of the football year in and year out. We saw it in Baltimore for a while, so on and so forth. This team now has that. We haven't had that luxury. You go back to last year. We didn't have that kind of luxury on both sides of the football.
No.
Because of their schedule, they were able to do some great things at the end, especially once they found that they could be an offensive running football team, control the clock, and take a lot of pressure off their defense. Now, it doesn't make a difference which side of the unit is on the field. Defense can hold its own. The offense can be explosive at any given moment. And so far, they are complementing each other very well, and a significant reason why they're just one of two teams left undefeated through 3 weeks.
I just like the diversity in the way they can hurt you. They can't, even though Sanders didn't have a great game and the running attack wasn't great, we know that's there if they need it, if they need to lean on that, if the passing game isn't clicking or whatever, that's there. They, as we've seen the last couple of games, they can kill you through the air. And really they're doing this mostly in a half the way they've been doing it.
Yep.
Defense, 9 sacks last week. We know that's not going to happen every single week, but all of a sudden that might have opened the floodgates up for Hassan Reddick, for some of the other guys now to get going in the pass rush. We know Slay and Bradbury can shut you down. We know how good Maddox is as your nickel corner. Your safety play has been pretty solid. I think your safeties have done a nice job so far, and your linebackers like TJ Edwards have been excellent.
It was such a big question mark as we talked about all summer long. What is this safety position going to look like? Now with the addition of Gardner Johnson, Epps has played lights out. Epps has played more snaps than any, I believe, any DB on the back end of that defense, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. He's really emerged. Barrett talked about him all off season. I said, I have to wait and see with him. I thought he played well at times, but obviously made young mistakes. He hasn't really made a lot of mistakes through the first 3 games. The ability for the back end to man up and play more man-to-man allows the front 7 to play more games, whether it's just a 4-man attack or if they do decide to send an extra attacker. That's a luxury a lot of teams don't have in the National Football League. A lot of teams can't trust that umbrella. When I talk about an umbrella, I mean from corner to corner, from the one corner to the 2 safeties to the other side. Not many teams in the National Football League, Chargers, Green Bay, Miami, Baltimore, New Orleans, they have that kind of umbrella, but most teams don't. You have some kind of weak link on the back end that you try to cover up for. Because those guys are so solid,
right?
You're more efficient up front.
No doubt, and no question. And we're going to do our own individual rankings at tomorrow and then Thursday and Friday. I did want to hit you with this because I know you like these. The NFL Network put out their top 4 NFL power rankings. This is both conferences.
Right.
Just, I mean, guess. If you had to guess, who do you think, what would your top 4 be?
I would say, surprisingly enough, the Eagles would be number 1.
Okay.
Miami would be number 2. Wow, number 3. That's a tough one because teams fell by the wayside.
Yeah, a couple.
I would still say Buffalo has to be in that top 4.
Okay.
So am I 3 for 3 so far?
Yes, but not necessarily in that order. But yes,
okay.
You have the first 3.
So I have the first 3. Now that fourth one is a little tricky one. Let me think about it for a second here. Tampa Bay showed us weak link. Well, they didn't have 3 receivers.
Actually, it's 5, not 4. Sorry.
Oh, 5. Okay. Yeah. Kansas City took a hit. I would say Kansas City is still in that mix.
You're 4 for 4,
okay.
Not in the exact order, but you got 4.
Okay, so I got 4 for 4. Yeah, I did Jim G. Gunner peak. No, Gunner did not peak. Gunner watches
Gunner's
the game.
honest, Jim.
No,
come on.
No.
Come
Gunner
on.
watches the game. Been doing this for 40 plus years, brother.
Yes.
Let's see, that number 5 team. Boy, that's a tricky one. I can't put Green Bay in there. Obviously, I can't put Minnesota in there. I'm not ready to put the Rams in there yet. Wow. The 5th team. The 5th team. Let me see.
Want to give it to you?
Yeah, it's killing me.
All right, here's your order. Kansas City's 5.
Okay.
Green Bay's 4.
Oh, on the strength of their defense. Green Bay's defense is balling.
I know.
And their defense is balling.
We tend to just focus on the offense. But
yep.
And the same thing, we do the same thing with Tampa Bay. We worry about Brady and the offense when their defense is ridiculous. But Kansas City's 5, Green Bay's 4, Miami's 3.
Okay,
Buffalo's
3.
Yeah, Buffalo's 2, even with the loss.
Okay.
And the Eagles are number 1.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. When I look across the league right now, and I put Buffalo on a high pedestal, and they'll bounce back. They're going to have to overcome the loss of Micah Hyde. That's a huge loss for the back end. Jordan Poyer is really good, but that's a huge loss. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Buffalo relies on a number of rookies on that defense, and that defense is solid as it is, tells you the depth of that Buffalo defense as well. But right now, across the board through 3 games, I can't see putting another team ahead of the Eagles right now. They have been so efficient on both sides of the football. They're so explosive. They can score at any given moment on offense. The defense, the back end of the defense has shown that they can play lockdown football, which has been a great compliment to the front 7. So, yeah, I'm not surprised one bit the Eagles are at the top of that list.
Yeah,
right now.
I can't really argue. The only thing I don't really think you can argue the list. If you were going to maybe throw somebody in there, but I don't know who they would go ahead of.
Yeah,
I would simply say Tampa because their defense is that good. Their offense is so banged up right now. So I buy it. All right, let's go Jalen Hurts here. So he's got 916 passing yards. That's 3rd in the NFL. He's got 4 passing touchdowns. It's tied for 13. Right. It's okay. His passer rating, 5th. 5th in the NFL.
Okay.
His QBR, 6th in the NFL right now. He's rushed for 167 yards. That's second only to Lamar Jackson, who's ahead of him there. I mean, he's got the completion percentage up, the passer rating, the QBR, and the other thing I love is he's taking care of the football too, Derek, on top of everything else. He has the interception in what was it, game 2 when it went off of Gainwell's hands, which really wasn't on Jalen Hurts. He's got 1 pick. I mean, the completion percentage is 67%. Now that 67%, just to put it in comparison of where we were the last couple of years, he was 61.3 last year, and the little bit of time that he got in 20, he was 52%. So that's a big improvement in a key area.
No question about it. And he should be in a conversation right now. I even talking about MVP after 3
games.
With 3 games. But as we sit here right now, he's definitely in that conversation about MVP. He has been virtually flawless. The way he's played the last 2 games in particular. The first game a little rust, 18 of 32. That's understandable. But still, he made the necessary throws. Can he throw the ball across the body? 2 straight weeks now. We worried about that because he didn't do that extremely well last year. That's a big one. He can throw to his outside now. He can put the ball where it needs to be. Now, he's got some incredible athletic, acrobatic receivers to throw to, i.e., Devontae Smith going up and getting that ball at the goal line, one-handed touchdown catches. A.J. Brown is unstoppable. You can't cover the man one-on-one. Quez Watkins is a jet, who who's improved his pass catching technique. It was a big problem last year. How many balls he dropped.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is doing all the right things, making all the right calls. Nick Sirianni said it was Jalen who called the touchdown throw to Devontae when they went for it in 4th and inches at the goal line against Washington. It was Jalen that made the call. So he's seeing the game better. He's understanding defenses better. He's done everything you've asked and then some at a much better clip than we all thought he would through at this point of the season. So, yes, Jalen Hurts right now has to be considered one of the best of the best in the game right now.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things. He's his work ethic is second to none.
No
you
question.
Love that.
No question.
They did a good job of helping him by getting him more parts that he needed. Certainly A.J. Brown falls in that category. And Zach Pascal was a real nice little move too.
Absolutely.
Veteran, even though it doesn't give you a ton, he helps. So you add those guys. You already have a good offensive line, good running game. And Mike Quick pointed this out a little bit earlier. Brian Johnson, who has the familiarity going back to when he was a kid as his quarterback's coach, and just being an assistant for the second straight year.
Yeah.
And I think Steichen and Nick have a good feel for him right now for exactly what's working. And you brought up Steichen a little bit earlier to Mike Quick. And by the way, we podcast all of our interviews. Just go to jakibsports.com, and there's unbelievable content on there too from John McMullen and a lot of other folks, Paul Domowitch, et cetera. But just listen to what these guys are saying about the ability to work with in the same system for the second straight year, and Steichen's ability to keep teams off balance. Like he had the Washington Commanders guessing. I know I caught myself just straight up guessing on Sunday. They had no idea what was coming next.
No, and he's done that 2 straight weeks now. Minnesota would not get out of that zone defense. He chewed them up. Washington, same thing. He kept finding the weak link in that defense, especially in the passing game, and he chewed them up. I don't think Shane Steichen gets enough credit. We talk about him just calling the plays, but the way he's calling the game is superb right now. And that's why I had to ask Mike, because if this continues, we keep talking about, is Jonathan Gannon going to get a head coaching job? Hey, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I would hire Shane Steichen before I hire Gannon. And that's not a knock against Gannon, because I think Gannon has called great games the last 2 games.
Yeah.
But the way Steichen has called 3 consecutive games now, if this is his MO for the rest of the season against these opponents this year, I'm guaranteeing his name's going to be in a lot of people's mouths. He's going to get a lot of interviews for head coaching jobs at the conclusion of this season.
You think it's because we didn't really at the time know that he took over the play calling last year, and it coincided with them turning things around,
right?
Or is it because Nick is so known as an offensive coach that we all automatically relate the offense to Nick? Why is it that Steichen probably doesn't get it? Certainly we focus a lot more on Gannon than we do Steichen. Both guys are coordinators.
Sure. I think it's because we all assumed that Nick was calling the plays.
Yeah.
That this is Nick's offense. But I think he got to a point where he felt comfortable, and I've said this a number of times, he felt comfortable that Steichen was of the same mindset as him when it comes to looking at defenses, breaking down defenses, knowing where to go to your strengths at any given time on down and distance. And it turned out that he was right. You look last year when they turned it around, we give Sirianni so much credit for identifying that we need to run the ball more than we need to pass the ball. But we don't know how much credit should Steichen have gotten from seeing that and identifying it. And I believe that was at a point when Nick said, you know what? You get this. We think alike. And all of a sudden it became Steichen's show. Now this year, Nick made it very clear Steichen will be calling the offense. So now we're looking at Steichen as an offensive play caller. Now, I also know, covering this game for as long as I have, there are position coaches and coordinators who make better position coaches and coordinators than they do head coaches. But the fact that Steichen has been able to do what he's done up to this point, he deserves, if he continues on this trend, he deserves the right to at least get a chance to be a head coach. If Cliff Kingsbury and some of the other people out there have gotten head coaching jobs, why shouldn't Shane Steichen get his opportunity as well?
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, you asked Mike a little bit earlier concerns, and one of the ones you brought up were special teams, and you're right on with that. How much should we worry about the second halves here? And I'm talking about the offense. I'm excluding the defense because they keep doing their job in terms of not letting the other team put up points. But, now 5 quarters where they haven't scored in games. Mm-hmm. I'm not particularly worried about it if that trend continues into this week and next week, et cetera. But where are you at with it, Derek?
The name of the game is to score more points than your opposition. They've shown you they can score it well. I'm not concerned about it right now because they get out to such big leads that they can basically, put it on cruise control. I like to see them finish a few more drives. When you look at the last 2 games, their inability to score points in the second half, is it a concern? Not at this particular point because we understand the personnel and what they're capable of doing in any given moment. It's only going to become an issue if they don't score points in the second half and all of a sudden the team loses. But right now, I'm not concerned about it.
I just think, we for some reason, we overlook the fact that you're trying to an extent to milk some clock.
Yes.
It's not that you're trying not to lose, which can get you in trouble, but you are not going to take the same risks, if you will. You want to keep the clock moving. So you keep the other team, you're just eliminating and you're making them play 2 teams. And I think we just look at it like everything's equal footing. It's 0-0. No, it's not. When you get up like that,
right.
That's strategy. That's smart.
Right.
And I think they're taking some of the air out of the football, to an extent a little bit. You're not maybe seeing some of the deep shots that you were earlier in the game. You may not risk it with a trick play or trying to be cute or whatever. And I think that comes into play. Like, I think if these games had gotten close where you were sweating it a little bit, then you change things up. I'm honestly speaking, both Minnesota and last week against Washington, I never felt like either one of those teams is coming back.
No.
So I don't worry about it too much.
And I don't think they did either.
Yeah.
You're protecting your bodies. Sterling Shepard, who goes down with a fluke injury last night, there's nothing you can do about that. It was a non-contact. But every time we look up week after week, and we know this is coming, week after week, we see a big name who's now lost for the season. And so if their mindset is, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no way on this particular day that these opponents are coming back against us, take your foot off the gas. I know people want to see more points and but you know what? The bottom line is we need to be as healthy in December and January as we are right now.
All right, let's get a quickie here. I will hold off on the live read, Xander. We'll do that next break, but we'll get a quick timeout, come back. Tom McCarthy's going to join us. T-Mac in Chicago. Can't wait to talk to Tom, not only about the Phillies, but Tom's been doing the Jags game, so he's got a pretty good handle on what Doug P. and that crew is going to look like. So we will talk to Tom when we get back. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network.